Hello, my name is Savior20061, known to those who know me as Christopher Jones. Um, Today we are going to talk about The Gunslinger, part one of the Dark Tower books by Stephen King. This is a big one. Well, the book isn't big; it's just a big deal because the Dark Tower series is considered by everyone, including King himself, to be his magnum opus. It's 7 books. That's huge. Anyway, basically, is this a good book? Is this a good book? Obviously, I would say that it is, but it's got a lot of issues, and I'm about to tell you why. The characters are actually both pretty good, if somewhat predictable. Um, we have the titular gunslinger, known as Roland of Gilead. He is he's kind of a law enforcer slash gunslinging warrior, kind of a vigilante or something like that. He's basically a warrior who shoots guns and he almost never misses. He's pretty cool. He's also kind of a jackass because throughout the series and also throughout this book, he's kind of a user, basically. When like earning his gunslinger title, he uses his hawk as a tool to actually end up winning his title, but the hawk ends up dying, which kind of sucks. He does something, I don't want to spoil it, but he does something similar to a character that he meets later on in the book. His goal is to find like the titular Dark Tower. Why? Well, I don't know, and that's another problem that I'll be discussing later on. Another character is Jake. He's basically like an innocent character. He's naive, but not completely naive, because he knows a bit about what's going on with the gunslinger, but it's kind of a very predictable type of dynamic relationship where you got one person who's a jackass, and you got another person who is kind of innocent. We've seen it all the time when it comes to books, movies, stories, whatever. All the same, it's still pretty good. Roland was kind of a new character for King, because he usually writes about very unassuming writers, professors, teachers, people that King, roles that King has sometimes done in his life. He's been a teacher, he's been a professor, I think, and he's a writer, obviously. He's not tough, he's not cold, and Roland, the gunslinger, is kind of both of these things, which is kind of... King said that he didn't like writing the character, and I can honestly see why, because he's kind of a jackass. The plot's a little bit yucky. Because the story is just like 300. I think it's actually this edition right here. It's got like it's got a foreword and like an introduction by the writer, by King. The plot's kind of yucky because it's like 300 pages, but a lot of people have trouble finishing it anyway. It's got... I don't want to say that it's got the same problem as the Tommyknockers, because the Tommyknockers, basically, it kept going all over the place because King was probably high when he wrote it. In fact, he was almost certainly high when he wrote it. But the problem with this one is that it starts in media res. That means it starts in the middle of things and it's explained later. That gives it... We don't end up knowing a lot about what's going on. We don't know that much. We know a bit about Roland. We don't know why Jake is there, because he just appears there, and even he doesn't know what happened. We don't know why he's trying to find the man in black. That's his ultimate goal in the first book. I don't know about the others. I haven't read them. His ultimate goal is to find the man in black. Why? I don't know. He believes that the black man that the man in black will give him some clue as to the tower. What's in the tower? We don't know. The King here he gives us a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And that's why a lot of people really can't finish the book. The narrative is, the style isn't that straightforward. It's almost like a dreamy, it's almost like a dreamy type of sequence, the way everything is presented, especially at first. It's very open-ended. It's very vague. People are going to have a lot of questions. People say, hey, was the first book in a series of 7. I understand that. But you have to keep in mind that Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone was a book in a series. It was the first book in a series of 7. But it wasn't completely vague as to everything. Basically, Rowling set a narrative, and she just kept building and developing her the other books around it. Basically, here King tosses a lot of. He doesn't really do the same thing. It starts out vague and it's going to be clarified in later books, and for some people that's not going to be good enough. Climax, not that good. Well, it is the first book in a series of 7, but not that much ends up happening. I'll just put it to you that way. And overall, it probably sounds like I didn't like the book that much, but I actually did like the book. It did have a little bit of action. It had a considerable amount of action. Sorry, not that much in like 2 very important areas that had a large amount of action. Because of course you don't want the story to be just about the action. Vanilla Coke. Basically, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads.com. Can I recommend it? I honestly don't know, because the plot isn't. It's not done that well. I don't think I don't think that I can recommend this as a first book. I might be able to. I could recommend it as a first book for new coming readers before I can do it to the Tommyknockers, because this book is just vague in terms of its narrative and is clarified later, but the Tommyknockers was completely messed up because King was high. There's a difference, I think, basically. So that's my review.